as well. Jesse, before you go away, are you ready for rapid fire?
I am ready for rapid fire. I think my phone knew that the fire was coming because it shut down because my phone got too hot, and so I had
Oh
to
boy.
quickly turn on the car and blast the AC onto my phone to get the temperature to cool down a little bit.
It's weird how it does that sometimes. You needed like a Ziploc bag and a bag of ice or something that you can throw it in. But all right, we better get going then. Make sure USMA 87 says one of the things that you can also bid on in that auction is throwing out the first pitch at a Tigers game, which would definitely be cool. All right, so we've been talking stock on today's show, Jesse. Buy low, sell high is the principle. Fill in the blank. The Notre Dame player whose stock you would buy heading into the summer and toward fall training camp is blank.
The player stock that I would buy low and sell high is Junior Tuihalamaka. I believe, I've been raving about him this whole offseason. I like the transition from him to linebacker to defensive line because he has the speed of a linebacker, but still has the strength of a defensive lineman. And I think that his versatility is going to be very vital this upcoming season. I think you're going to see him in a lot of different packages and fronts. He's going to be a guy who you can mismatch and kind of glue in wherever you need. So I would say, looking at someone's stock who is like low right now compared to others and who could really boom and sell high, I think Junior Tuihalamaka would be my person.
Yeah, I think that one is a good one as well. He's very intriguing with that transition from middle linebacker to that Viper defensive end paired up along with Jordan Botelho. And Vince and I kind of talked. We had three different duos yesterday, and which one we were most confident in, and the Botelho Tuihalamaka was one of them, and we both feel really good about that duo. So that's a good one. I'm going to go with a guy who didn't get to practice at all this spring, but who had a really great spring last year. He's coming off the Achilles injury, Jadarian Price. And because of where this running back room is right now, when you look at, you talked about Andrick Estime's stock really being up after the departure of Logan Diggs. And I talked about, well, Japron Payne's stock is up as well. But Jadarian Price is, if the guy is healthy, and just based on the fact we did get to see him start running some sprints and stuff like that toward the end of spring practice, and they're getting into the summer now, I think that is the guy to watch once again. Coming out of last spring, all the buzz was about Jadarian Price and what he was going to be able to do. And now, if he's coming back, that's who I'm going with, is Jadarian Price. That's whose stock I'm buying right now. Sticking with some stock swapping. What two college football teams would you buy stock in for this season, and which two would you sell their stock right now?
So this is a tough question. I think I'll start with my first sell. I would sell Florida State's stock going into the season. I'm not completely sold on them being, kind of as highly touted as everyone kind of puts them out to be. And I know they have a supposed kind of quarterback that's supposed to be pretty good, but you got to be able to prove it. And I think Florida State, really hasn't shown anything yet this season. So I would definitely sell their stock. A team stock that I would buy is I would buy Oregon stock out in the Pac-12. I think that they are going to be much better this season. I don't think Bo Nix gets enough credit for being really a solid quarterback. And I think anything is really possible out in the Pac-12. I think outside of USC, we kind of know what's expected there. But I think that, Oregon was very close last season, and they ended up playing in a really good bowl game and beat a really good North Carolina team, in my opinion. So I am buying their stock. Another team stock that I'm buying is honestly Notre Dame's. And that's not just because of, this show or Irish Breakdown or anything like that. I just genuinely think that they're kind of undervalued right now. And they have a lot of good things on paper. They've improved at the quarterback position. They're going to improve at the wide receiver position. Their offensive line is going to, be the steady kind of constant that it is. And then their defense, I think their defense is going to improve compared to last year. And that they already had a pretty solid defense last year, but I think they're going to be more experienced, quicker, and just overall better this year. So I would also buy Notre Dame stock going into this season. And then honestly, the last one I would sell Michigan stock. And the reason why I
Ooh.
would sell Michigan stock is I don't think that Jim Harbaugh can do it 3 years in a row. I don't think that he can beat Ohio State 3 years in a row. I don't think he can win the Big Ten 3 years in a row. And I think that their window was ultimately last year when they had the shot to play TCU in the college football playoff and failed to go to the national championship. So I think, overall, Michigan stock is going to be down compared to last season. I think they're going to be one of those teams looking out, on the outside in at the college football playoff this year after making it the past 2 seasons. I know a lot of people are really high on Michigan. Like a lot of people I see have them in their top three. I'm just really not buying it. JJ McCarthy's not a great quarterback. I think that, they've kind of relied on that kind of old school, Jim Harbaugh offense, but I don't think that can go that far. And I think that their running backs aren't going to be able to sustain the success that they had the past few seasons.
Yeah, interesting. The two cells that you have, Michigan and Florida State, were both under consideration. I considered both of them on my sell list. What it came down to for both of them is I think that they just have easy enough schedules that, you're right. Like, will Michigan get to the college football playoff again? Yeah, I think that would be, that would be stretching it a little bit. I still think they're going to be, right around the top 10 when it's all said and done. The question is going to be what kind of dent Penn State is able to make in there, because a lot of people are really high on Penn State this season. Like, is Penn State going to be able to at least split with Michigan or Ohio, and Ohio State? And if it's Michigan they beat, does Ohio State beat Michigan as well? But so I left them off. And again, like Florida State, really their season's going to come down to, they've got LSU early on once again. They've got Clemson. And of course they have Miami. Those three games right there. And I was considering a sell, but I kind of held off on them. My sells are Texas. They're last year in the Big 12. I saw someone was buying on Texas. They're obviously overhyped every year. They lost 5 games again last year. They lost their best player, Bijan Robinson, and everyone in the conference, I think, is going to be shooting for them this year in their last year in the Big 12. So I'm selling on Texas, and I'm selling on another orange team as well, and it's Tennessee, because they lose Hendon Hooker. We'll see what Joe Milton gives them. But, I think last year was a little bit of a lightning in a bottle. And, it was their first double-digit win season in 15 years. So odds are they come back to earth a little bit this year. They've got to play Alabama. They've got to play Georgia. They get Texas A&M and South Carolina back-to-back. That's not going to be an easy back-to-back. So I'm selling the two orange teams. I agree with you. I'm buying Notre Dame stock right now as well because of where they are. I feel like that they're in a really good position, kind of sitting on the cusp of the top 10. I do think they're going to be a playoff contender when it's all said and done. And I'm going to buy Washington as well. You went with Oregon. I'm going to go with Washington with a guy that a lot of people think is the second best quarterback in the Pac-12, and Michael Penix Jr., after Caleb Williams, obviously, but they've added some secondary help through the transfer portal. They've added a little bit to their backfield. Their season's going to come down to back-to-back games, USC and Utah, to start off the month of November for Washington. So at least for right now, I think that their stock has a chance to rise really high before they get to November. Is your phone doing okay still?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Okay. It sounded like you were bouncing it off the dashboard or something. I've got another Notre Dame question for you. When it comes to Notre Dame's football helmets, do you prefer the shiny laminate helmets that they have right now, or would you rather they go back to painting the helmets? So like they paint the helmets, but you've got, like the more dull kind of look. This is something Brian was talking about recently. Which do you prefer?
I prefer the new ones. I like the shiny. And the reason why I like that is because Notre Dame is known for the Golden Dome. And I think that the helmets are a very accurate representation of the Golden Dome. And when I think of golden, I think of shiny, I think of bright, and I think of, gold. But I don't, those dull ones, that just doesn't remind me really of gold. It reminds me of like a dark kind of mustardy almost color. So yeah, I'm all aboard on the newer ones just because of, again, they remind me more of golden. I like the sparkle. I like the splash. I like, how they kind of replicate the Golden Dome.
Yeah, I wish, the painting the helmets tradition is really cool. And like they did that for several years, basically until the Brian Kelly era rolled around when they started, dabbling and finding it's these the new ones with the laminate, they just look too good, especially on TV, whether it's night or day, the sparkle in those helmets. I think it looks really cool. It is really sharp. They stand out from virtually every other gold helmeted team in the nation. Like Boston College still kind of has that old dull look. Like when Navy wears theirs, it's that old dull, just gold spray painted look. Notre Dame's stand out so much better. And when you're on national TV as much as they are, I think that they really need it because they're never going to change their helmets that much. And I think that where you are right now, you need that sharp sparkle pop coming off those helmets, whether it's a night game or a day game. So I like them. Again, I do miss the tradition of the painting of the helmets. I think it was a really cool tradition, but just from a look standpoint, I don't think you can beat the current gold that they have. they're still giving you a hard time, Jess or Salty. He wants to know what that noise was. He thinks you're out there buying weapons and I'm giving you coded messages for your Sandusky trip there. So, all right, the NFL schedule release for the upcoming season is this week, Thursday night. It'll be released. As the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Chiefs, of course, will play the first game of the season. They'll get a Thursday night game. It'll be a home game. Here are their home opponents for the season. You've got, of course, the AFC West, the Broncos, Chargers, and Raiders. And then they will also play the Eagles, the Buffalo Bills, the Cincinnati Bengals, Miami Dolphins, Chicago Bears, and Detroit Lions at home. So which of those teams would you want the Chiefs to open against?
Honestly, I want to say the Eagles, but that's just a rematch too early. To me, you can't really go with a divisional opponent because I think that divisional opponents are more so, for the middle of the season, that kind of middle chunk of the season, middle third of the season, I guess you could say. And then the Eagles too. So can you repeat those teams, not the Eagles and not out of the AFC West?
Sure. The other teams are Buffalo, Cincinnati, Miami, Chicago, and Detroit.
I would have to say either Buffalo or Cincinnati because I think those are two teams that, obviously they've played before. And those are also very solid teams who, going into the season, you would say that they have really strong playoff aspirations. And you want to put a game on as the opening night game that's going to catch a lot of attention. So you want two really well matched up teams. So I would have to say Cincinnati or Buffalo. But really, I like the the going out of the conference. So I would have to say Cincinnati. And that would be my final choice.
Cincinnati's who you're going. I don't want to see them play the Eagles. I don't want a rematch of the Super Bowl right off the bat. I mean, I think save that for middle to late October, maybe even early November, something like that. I think I think you could make a case for the Dolphins, just considering you've got Tua and Tyreek Hill in that whole thing. And as long as Tua is healthy, I think that would actually be a really great game. And you've got the Tyreek Hill connection going back to Kansas City. I think that would be a good one. So I'll go outside the box a little bit. I'll go with that. I agree. I think the obvious choices are either Buffalo or Cincinnati. But you look at those Eagles, Bills, Bengals games, those are games that if you put them on in a primetime game somewhere in the middle of the season, you're going to get a huge rating no matter what, because they're all going to be Super Bowl contenders. You don't necessarily have to put them at the front of the schedule, I don't think. But I don't think you could go wrong with any of them. But I'll just go with Tyreek Hill going back to Kansas City with Tua with the Miami Dolphins in week 1 against Kansas City.
Speaking of schedules and games, did you see that this season no network owns any games anymore?
Yeah, they're going to like it used to be if you had an NFC and an AFC team playing, the TV assignment was based on who the visiting team was. So like if the Eagles, for example, were visiting Kansas City, it would be a Fox game. But they've done away with that now, and now they're basically all up for grabs. And I think that might have had something to do with Vince and I were talking yesterday. Peter King was reporting that they might have to delay the schedule release because they were still trying to get it all together. And then they came out later in the afternoon and said, no, we're going to get it. But I think he said something about like these TV assignments, because of the way things are being done differently now, might have thrown a wrench into things a little bit, but they're going to be on track with it. It's going to be different, like you might have some, you're going to have some different announcers calling games that you haven't been used to, depending on what team you're a fan of for the last few years.
I like it. I like the fact that there's going to be a lot of variation, because it seems like oftentimes a lot of teams kind of get stuck with the same broadcasts, majority of the season.
We are not Marshall says, who else is stoked for year 38 of the Bears rebuild? He's ready.
Speaking of Chicago and rebuilds, I think I'm going to go out on a conspiracy here, and I'm just going to leave it at this. The NHL lottery was pretty rigged last night for Chicago to get the number one pick. I mean, Connor Bedard, I know this is my limited hockey knowledge, but Connor Bedard is a very generational talent, and I don't think that Chicago was very deserving. And I think that a team that's been, part of the original six, I think that the NHL kind of rigged it for Chicago to get that number one pick this season. I think there were, more deserving teams, but that's how the lottery works. But to me, the system seemed a little bit rigged.
You're such a conspiracy theorist.
It's fun it's fun because then you get people riled up.
I guess so. I wasn't paying attention closely enough to.
Well,
I did see like one tweet about it this morning, I think.
There was an instance where I guess the guy who was doing announcing the lottery order announced the pick before it even they went to commercial, and he blurted out who was going to have what pick and everything. And so there's a lot of conspiracies going around that it could be rigged.
Yeah. Rom, like Jesse, it's not televised. No teams moved from 4 to 16, and only Chicago moved up. Rigged. Oh,
that's what I mean.
And then Chi-Town is jeering and heckling you right now.
It's just it's obvious that the NHL wanted this stud in a big market. They didn't want him going to Anaheim or Columbus potentially. They wanted him in Chicago, and so that's big. It makes sense to me.
Big conspiracy. All right. The NCAA is considering a change to the college basketball charging rule. It would make the defender gain position before the ball handler plants their foot to leap into a shot. The defender previously has only had to be in position before the player was in the air. So do you buy or sell this possible change?
I sell this. There's no reason to tweak rules, and especially when it's the same rule as the NBA is. If you are established before, basically the player has lifted off into the air or taken flight, then it's a charge. And I don't think that, in a game where I think charges are they're big momentum shifters. And I think it takes away the power from the defense a little bit. And I don't like that. I think it's already hard enough to play defense as is. And again, I like things that translate across the board. And these guys are going to be going from college to NBA, so I say don't mess with the rule. I think it's already hard enough to play defense.
I like it. It's like you get into the NCAA tournament and it turns into such a mess, and I think it can it like the way these officials call games. I don't like it. I don't like the late slide to get into position. So I like them actually having to be in position earlier than later, because I do think that there are too many times, like, what is an offensive player supposed to do once they have left the ground, and a player is still sliding over in front of them? So I think that it is too easy to draw a charge in college basketball, actually. So I like this rule. I like the fact that they're doing this tweak. Potentially, they've still got to approve it, but I like the fact that they're at least looking at doing this. had a few that popped up with a chance. Joe said Notre Dame baseball is trending up. Well, they were before the weekend.
They
Then
took a
they lost
tough
2 out of
series to
3.
NC State.
They're really in trouble actually right
They
now.
got it. If they really want to feel good about themselves, they not only need to take 2 or 3 from Boston College, they need a clean sweep at Boston College.
They need to sweep out the regular season, to have any chance of an at-large bid, I think. And
Semis
really,
in the ACC tournament.
yeah, I was going to say they're putting themselves into a situation now where, they might even have to go all the way to the ACC championship, to get an at-large. Obviously, if they win the ACC,
it just really sucks because they started off really slow against some teams that I think if they played now, that they would handle their business against.
I agree. Jason wants to know, going back to what teams you're buying or selling, are you buying or selling Colorado?
I'm buying Colorado, actually. I think everyone's giving Deion a hard time. I think Deion knows how to win, and that's proven throughout his career and his track record so far as a coach. And I get it. It's hard. It's going to be harder and different in a Power 5, but I think Colorado is really going to start trending upwards. And if it's not this year, I think you'll see, major strides definitely in the next couple of seasons. I would hold Deion Sanders to the same standard that I held Marcus Freeman to. I didn't expect Marcus Freeman to go out there in his first year and be absolutely perfect, at Notre Dame, and considering the level at which Notre Dame plays at. And I think Colorado obviously is not nearly as, known for its football program as Notre Dame, but I still think Deion's going to struggle a little bit this year. But I think year 2 is really where I'm going to be, crucial or more harsh on someone like Deion and the Colorado program.
I'm buying them long term. I mean, right now, they've got a pretty low bar. The Vegas over under, the last I saw was 3.5. Their win total.
I got to take that somewhere.
I think so. I like the over on that. I mean, 3.5 is not a very big number, so I definitely like the over on that. I don't care about the, like a lot of these outlets have tried to spin this that there is a mass exodus, like people, like these players were leaving Deion. Like it's the other way around.
No, Deion was forcing
them out. Yeah, and there's a big difference in how things have gone down out there. Oops, I accidentally unstarred Chi-Town. But he was asking earlier what we thought about that Alabama baseball scandal, and we touched on it a little bit last week. It is just nuts to see the head coach of a Power 5, not just Power 5, but the SEC, like the premier college baseball conference in the country, getting fired for placing bets, not just placing bets on his own team. As someone pointed out last week, he wasn't Pete Rose betting on his team to win. He bet allegedly on his team to lose to LSU, and that's what got him fired. Some large sums, 2 large bets were placed that they would lose to LSU, and that's what ultimately got him fired. It's just nuts.
There's just no way else to spin it. The guy's just an idiot. How do you, as a Division I baseball coach, how do you think, that these things won't get back to you? Anyone who gets caught up in any sort of these scandals, it's just you're in a higher magnifying glass than the normal person, and the fact that you believe that you won't be won't get caught, it's stupid to me.
Chi-Town wants to know if we think that the Bama baseball team will get the SMU death penalty. I don't think so. I think
it's nothing on them. It's one person specifically.
Yeah, it's not like
it's not like recruiting violations or any of that kind of stuff.
I mean, what's crazier is now you've got Iowa and Iowa State football players who are all involved in this big gambling thing as well. Like, I mean, that's the whole gambling aspect. That was a big concern when you're talking about involving college sports. And like, I didn't even realize you could place bets on college baseball until this whole thing came up. So no, I don't think they'll get the death penalty. I think they fired the head coach. They'll move on from it the best they can. But
I've heard
it definitely sends a warning. What's that?
I said I've heard some rumors going around about the state of Ohio's gaming commission as a whole. I think that they're seriously considering kind of shutting it down, and that's just stuff I've heard. It might be just blowing smoke, but again,
you guys just got sports gambling at the start of the year, didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
So are you saying shutting it down completely or just college sports that they're
I was
considering
talking about
shutting down?
Iowa, not Ohio.
Oh, Iowa. I thought you said Ohio. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Wow.
Just what
Crazy.
I've heard.
Yeah. All right. Last question tonight. If you could go back in time, what sports moment would you have loved to be at?
Oh, so I got to look at this through, baseball and football were my jam. Um, those are the sports I love the most, the ones I obviously played for a really long time. The Cowboys have done nothing since my existence. I guess I would have to go back and say I would have loved to have been at Wrigley Field during the 2016 World Series and just being a part of the game, and then being able to hang out in Wrigleyville afterwards, go to the bars, celebrate, whatever it might be. I think that is the one that I would go back to. And with with Chicago playing in Cleveland, I actually almost had the opportunity to go to Cleveland because it was very close. It was closer to Cleveland than it was Chicago, based on where I lived at the time in Adrian, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
But I had actually quite a scenario going on in my apartment at the time, and so we weren't actually allowed to leave our apartment during the World Series. So yeah, that's the moment I would go with, though, being at Wrigley Field for the Cubs World Series.
Not a bad one. I'm going to go with Derek on this. I'll go back to my childhood. I'll say 1980 United States versus Russia in the Olympics, and Miracle on Ice. That's what I would go with for sure. That's when I remember. It was not live; it was tape delayed, but I remember watching it on TV as a kid, and that's the one that I would go back to. Lake Placid, Miracle on Ice. It's like the last really great moment, I think, especially in U.S. I mean, definitely in U.S. Olympic hockey, but so memorable. Of course, they made a movie about it and everything else. Chi-Town says, "Shot heard round the world." He's going Bobby Thompson. I'd go back in time and I would be standing next to Willie Mays in the on deck circle. Is where I'd be if I went back to Bobby Thompson. I've always wanted to be in black and white, so I would go back there as well. All right, some good ones. Good ones, good stuff tonight. And once again, don't forget, we mentioned this earlier, the Chad Tough auction that is going on. I posted the link, and I'll go ahead and post it again right now since it kind of got caught up. There are a lot of different things that you can place a bid on in this auction, and the big one is a package of 4 for the Notre Dame USC game. You're going to get to walk the walk from the Basilica. You're going to get down on the field and all different kinds of cool stuff. It is for 4 people, and if you go to that link, the givesmart.com, it is e.givesmart.com/events. It is the auction for the Chad Tough fight against DIPG. That is what that is for, a rare form of cancer. CJ Carr's brother Chad, who passed away from that, and his family founded the organization Chad Tough to fight against DIPG. Jesse made it through. We only had one cutout tonight, so that's good. Appreciate it. Hopefully your phone, stays golden. You stay golden.
No, I appreciate it. I'll have to, I'm on to my next hit, if you know what I mean.
Yes, that's right. I'm sure Salty thinks he knows what you mean. All right, have a great time or have a great night. Don't forget, smash the like button and, of course, subscribe, rate, and review. We appreciate you, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.